Interesting, it looks like the Sox may be interested in adding before opening day. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. In today's video, we're going over a little bit of news excerpt that we got from a Sean McAdams article that points to the possibility of the Red Sox wanting to add another outfielder. We're going to talk about why they may want to be doing this and whether or not it's even worth it. The article in question was written about a week ago, so this isn't incredibly new news. We just haven't really had the chance to talk about it. And as always, when we're referencing specific articles and videos, that link to the full article will be in the description down below. But specifically from this article, the part I wanted to talk about was this quote right here. It's not a major or critical need for now, but according to an industry source, the Red Sox have let other teams know that they're in the market for additional outfield depth, especially of the right-handed hitting variety. Pretty interesting, right? Now, this sentence sounds like not only are the Red Sox open to adding an outfielder, but specifically potentially trading for one feels like the more prominent stance in this moment. Why? Why are the Red Sox interested in adding an outfielder? Well, I would have to guess it has a lot to do with the GI illness that Wilyer Abreu has had over the past few weeks, right? This isn't any breaking news, but we know that Wilyer Abreu has been out for a pretty decent period of time. We know that he's about 3 weeks behind what he should normally be. We know that he's probably not going to be ready for opening day. The Red Sox obviously also know this, and that could be and probably is the reason why they are at least opening or starting to have these sort of conversations about possibly trading for / acquiring a right-handed hitting outfield. Now, the bigger question here is, why are the Red Sox doing this? And to be honest with you, I don't entirely have a fantastic answer to that. And the reason I don't really have a true answer to give you as to why the Red Sox may be doing this is because my first thought, and I assume most of your guys' first thought as well, was, don't the Red Sox have the kind of depth that requires covering for a guy for a couple of weeks before they end up coming back from something like this, right? And we're seeing it highlighted this spring training. So I think to answer this, we really got to go through these situations one by one, right? Because on the surface, you've got Thompson, Nate Eaton, who are both outfielders, who are both right-handed hitting outfielders specifically. Two of your top prospects can play the outfield. You already have Rob Refsnyder on the bench as well. So you've got this plethora of people. Why start putting out these feelers as to potentially trading for another one? Well, let's start with Thompson. He, right now, looks like the clear answer to this problem, right? I think a lot of Red Sox fans are sitting there and they're saying, hey, this dude's hitting absolute moon bombs in spring training. Why don't we just put this guy on the opening day roster? Well, I think maybe potentially one of the answers to that is because of the fact that Thompson does not have any minor league options remaining. If they were to put him on this opening day roster and then replace him with Wilyer Abreu in a couple of weeks, the only way to do that is to have to DFA him. You would have to send him through the waiver wire, and with the way he's been playing this spring training, there's a pretty good possibility that he doesn't make it through and end up back in the Red Sox system, right? So you'd essentially be loaning out Thompson after you use him. Maybe not exactly the thing the Red Sox want to do. Immediately lose that depth piece just a couple of weeks into the regular season. It kind of makes sense a little bit why they wouldn't want to do that. However, on the other hand, looking at Thompson, despite the fact that he is having a monstrous spring training that's getting talked about everywhere right now, career-wise, what we're talking about is a 212 hitter with a 711 OPS and a 93 OPS plus. This is all at the major league level with a ton of strikeouts. At 33 years old, he isn't exactly the future of the Red Sox. Isn't this kind of why you sign a guy like this, right? Isn't this why you get a ton of depth in positions where you didn't have a ton of depth before, so you can utilize players who maybe aren't the greatest ever to play the game, but can be serviceable for a week or two until Wilyer Abreu's out? My only answer to that question is it potentially going to be longer than just a couple of weeks? And if it is going to be longer than potentially a couple of weeks, wouldn't the answer just then be, hey, let's call up one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball, see what they can do in the outfield, right? Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, those are both guys that are at the top of your prospect list who could sit in the outfield and who are very close to Major League ready. And my answer to that is, yeah, why wouldn't you, right? I think my only answer to that is potentially they don't want these guys coming up in sort of a filler role. They don't want these guys coming up as, hey, you know that at some point you are going to be sent back down, right? Willie Abreu is going to come back and he is going to take back over that outfield spot. The easy answer there is, okay, trade Willie Abreu. However, the problem with that is not only is Willie sick right now and starting the year on the IL, which will diminish his trade value a little bit. I think a reason why he wasn't moved this offseason, or one of the reasons, is because teams want to see some things out of him before they end up going after him truly, specifically whether or not he can end up hitting left-handed pitching. And the only way to do that is to put him into games. So the answer there isn't incredibly simple. In my opinion, it wouldn't make a ton of sense to call a guy up like Roman Anthony, like Christian Campbell, just simply to have them on the opening day roster for 2 weeks and then send them back down to minor league baseball. If you're going to end up putting these guys on the opening day roster, in my opinion, it should be in, at the bare minimum, a role that they know that they have the ability to come in here and win full time. At the bare minimum, right? Ideally, you'd want them to come in here without really the pressure of having to win a spot, and more so the pressure of just simply trying to get themselves acclimated with Major League Baseball. But even if you can't do that, which the Red Sox really can't do right now with how their roster is constructed, they at least deserve the opportunity to go out there and win them a full-time position. I don't know that you can do that with where Willie Abreu is in his trade value. So for the prospects, I do kind of understand it. And to some degree, I do understand Trayce Thompson as well when you talk about the fact that you'd have to DFA him. However, the final guy that we talked about on this list, to me, kind of fits everything the Red Sox need, and they don't really have a reason not to put him on here. Of course, the final player that I'm talking about here is Nate Eaton. Another one of these guys, like Trayce Thompson, that you sign sort of perfectly for a situation like this. And like Trayce Thompson, he's also been absolutely killing it this spring training. Now, the average isn't exactly incredible. It's a 257, which is still solid. It's just not like, holy crap, eye-popping. But the slug is really, really great. He's hit 3 home runs in a few games, a handful of games, right? He's really impressing a lot of people with what he can do at the plate. If it wasn't for Trayce Thompson, he'd probably be the story of the Red Sox Spring Training. But unlike Trayce Thompson, and what sets him apart here is that he does have minor league options remaining, which means if you were to put him on the Red Sox 40-man roster here, you would be able to then option him down to AAA baseball, and you wouldn't have to go through that whole DFA process and the idea of losing him. So really, any excuse for the Red Sox to be like, you know what, we don't really want to do this for a week or two isn't really there. This is exactly why you sign a guy like Nate Eaton. He is your break glass in case of emergency player, like we've talked about a ton right here on this channel, right? You sign these guys so you can be able to break that glass, and Nate Eaton is sitting right there with an answer to, okay, we don't want to lose him. So I don't really have an answer to Nate Eaton not being the first option here to come in and take over the Willie Abreu spot. The only thing I could think of is, one, they are looking at his major league statistics versus his spring training statistics, which don't look all that incredible. But if you take the year that he had a bigger sample size, that's a pretty solid year. The other year, yeah, it didn't look too great in about 30-ish games. The only other thing I could think of is they aren't incredibly comfortable with his defensive abilities. Nate Eaton, an extremely fast player. Nate Eaton, a guy who could get to a lot of baseballs, but his outs above average at the major league level haven't exactly been fantastic. In fact, most part, they've been below average. He's got a strong arm, but he's not getting to as many baseballs as you'd hope with that kind of speed. They may not be incredibly comfortable putting that kind of guy in the outfield for even a couple of weeks, or specifically, I should say, right field at Fenway Park, right? They don't really have an answer to right field at Fenway Park. You've got Duran in left, you got Cedon in center, Ref Snyder's on your bench, but Ref Snyder's also getting older. He can't move quite as good as he has in the past. They might not be comfortable with him as a full-time right fielder as well, and that could be the answer as to why the Red Sox may be looking outside of the box here for an outfield talent. If they are going to go this route, I would assume it would be for a defensive forward outfielder, and that's not to say, in my opinion, you still should be going internally, right? Duran, I think, can handle right field at Fenway. I think Cedon can handle right field at Fenway, no problem. If you go Duran center field, in which he was an elite center fielder, and Cedon in right field, which he's an elite outfield in general, I don't think you really have a problem filling left field with a Rob Refsnyder, with a Nate Eaton, with a Trace Thompson, with a Roman Anthony, with a Christian Campbell, right? But if you're hell-bent on making sure that, say, Don Rafael is your center fielder and Jaron Duran's your left fielder, then yeah, I guess I can understand it to some degree. But then the question becomes, if it is all about defense, where do you go about looking for it? As we mentioned, it looks like this was more so put out as a feeler for a trade, right? The quote itself specifically mentions putting a feeler out to other teams, letting them know that they are interested, right? Not exactly free agents left on the market. And that's kind of a crapshoot a little bit, right? Because you're not looking for a star impact player here. You're looking for a Band-Aid type guy. And I would assume every single team in Major League Baseball has an option like that, right? Someone who's not going to cost a ton in terms of trade value. Someone who, again, either has a major league option where you wouldn't have to totally get rid of them, or someone who is you're comfortable DFAing because of this depth like Thompson and Eaton that you built up over the offseason. And so trying to predict who that could end up being is kind of like trying to find a singular specific needle in a giant needle stack, even more difficult than a haystack. So I'm not going to sit here and try and predict exactly who the Red Sox are going to target if this ends up becoming a more serious threat as we get closer to opening day, but it could be just about anyone. Anyone with some major league experience, specifically solid defensive major league experience, anyone who doesn't really have a future or a true role on their current major league team, probably someone who's sitting in AAA or is projected to start in AAA with their current roster. So nothing really super crazy in terms of the trade market. If they do go the free agent route, things are pretty slim, if we're being honest. You've got Alex Verdugo, who's still available. He's out there playing on surfboards or accordions or whatever you want to call it. I think I'm good on that if I'm the management of this Red Sox team, right? I think I'm sitting there saying, you know what, buddy? I think we're going to take our internal options. They've got Adam Duvall, who is a right-handed hitter, and that's specifically what they're looking for. But again, you go back to, okay, is he going to be any better defensively specifically than any of the options you have in-house? I would venture to guess no. Aaron Hicks is also a free agent. He's probably in a pretty similar boat to Adam Duvall when we're talking about their defensive prowess. I would guess at this point in their careers, both these guys are mainly DHs who can occasionally play the outfield, but I wouldn't go about making either of these two guys your everyday right fielder. So options on the free agent market are pretty slim, which is why I assume this quote, this sort of reference that Sean McAdams is making here in this article is pretty heavily centered towards the trade markets. You know what? Personally, I'm looking at all of this. I still think I go internally, right? I think there's no real reason for Nate Eaton to not be that guy. Even if you don't want him to be your everyday starting outfielder, you could put Rob Refsnyder in left field and then have, say, Don Rafaela or Jaron Duran, who I think are both perfectly capable of playing that right field at Fenway Park for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. It's not like Willie Abreu's getting surgery and is going to be out for the next month and a half. He's still doing baseball activities. He's about 2 weeks behind. He'll probably join the team mid-April. So I don't really understand this, to be honest with you. I don't really totally understand the idea that the Red Sox are going after another outfielder. To me, it just sort of feels like, plan D or E is, hey, if all of these guys don't work out right now, then we're going to turn to the outfield. What I do like about this, though, is that the Red Sox are being proactive, right? If they're not fully 100% comfortable with where right now this depth puts them in terms of being able to win baseball games, they're saying, okay, let's immediately rectify this and let's put some feelers out here. And if we do still feel uncomfortable down the road, we can now go and turn towards that and make an immediate adjustment as opposed to trying to make what you have work. I like that. It shows that, again, they're trying to win and they're trying to win right now. So I could appreciate that for sure. I just think, honestly, the answer right now is internally. I don't know, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section down below. What are your guys' opinions? Do you like the idea that the Red Sox are looking or potentially looking to trade for a right-handed hitting outfielder? Would you rather they stick internally, or do you like the idea of going out and getting somebody? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen instead of watch these videos, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.